Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Over the next 45 minutes, we're going to discuss how to get the most out of your workspace management tool. With that, we're going to do live demos on BrainStorm. We're going to talk about the Promevo and BrainStorm partnership and how we work together, and then have a really good Q&A session for our presenters afterwards. So I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Haley Zapata. I'm the Alliance Marketing Manager here at Promevo. Promevo is a premier Google partner. We sell, service, and build Google products. We are 100% Google focused, and we specialize in Chrome OS, Google Workspace, Google Cloud, and our own proprietary workspace management tool, gPanel. So enough about me. We're going to move on and introduce our presenters today. So please meet Todd Kirk. He's a solution provider advisory at BrainStorm. And our very own Jacqueline. She's a renewal specialist and our BrainStorm lead here at Promevo. All right, thanks, guys. Todd, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Haley. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I'm excited to be able to talk to you a little bit about BrainStorm. But more importantly, I want to be able to talk to you about the brand that IT has when it comes to driving a technology of adoption within an organization. You know, if you think about the task that has been put on the shoulders of those who are responsible for purchasing and managing tools inside the organization, one of the big challenges that we see pretty often is that the two main times when people have to interact with someone in IT is either when they're getting their computer as a new hire for the very first time or when something else is broken. And as a result, it can lead to a little bit of dissatisfaction with the technology tools that users have. But more importantly, it feels like IT has this reputation and this brand of just being the tool to fix things when something's broken, rather than being able to do more and help enable people. So if you're stuck basically just dealing with help desk calls or answering the same repeated questions over and over again, or you kind of feel like you're just constantly explaining basic concepts to people, it's possible that there isn't a real clear strategy there. And based off of the results of the poll that we've had so far, it sounds like a lot of you don't necessarily have a really strong adoption program there. So one of the reasons why that can be so beneficial is because it can change the perception of what IT is actually meant to solve at the organization. Technology shouldn't just be a cost of doing business. It should be driving a value to the business and helping you to achieve new ends and new goals. So that's really what we're going to try to focus on today. Now, one of the reasons why this is the problem that most organizations end up living in is because if you think about the different technologies that you have, many organizations, the average according to Okta is somewhere in the realm of 187 different enterprise applications that an organization purchases, and they're asking users to actually try and support. So if you are responsible for that technology, unfortunately, you sit in the middle. You have all these tools that you want people to take advantage of, but then you have all these end users that you have to somehow become an expert in all these tools and convey that information down to your team members. And that feels like a monumental task when you think about all of the other work that we have to do on a day-to-day basis. So what we need to figure out is how can we move from a system that's really reactive and make it proactive? And how do we do that to where instead of looking as just kind of this necessary evil that IT is or that technology is, that it's this really critical tool that's driving a business function? And instead of just trying to fill gaps all the time, what if we're adding value and optimizing the value of technology? We have to figure out how to do that in order to help organizations grow. But more importantly, we can't do that without and make your life harder. Ideally, we need to figure out a way to be able to do that and also do that in a scalable, effective way so that you don't have time and resource and people to just throw at the problem. So if you think about when it comes down to it and you're trying to drive adoption of technology, if you're trying to change the behavior of your users, there's kind of 4 core areas where you have these priorities. And depending on where you are as an organization, you might focus on one of these differently. So let's talk about the first most common one that I see, which is the onboarding of a new hire. So sometimes you hire a new employee, they used a different tech stack at your organization, at their previous employer. So maybe they used Microsoft or or they use Slack, and now you're asking them to use Gmail and Spaces. So it's a totally different shift for them. And so in order to make sure that you focus on having users use the right technologies to improve the business outcomes that we want, faster collaboration, more effective turnaround on projects, better delivery of product to customers, whatever that priority might be, if we can find those users during the onboarding process, that makes a big difference. The other thing we need to do is we need to be able to identify users who don't have the right behaviors that we want. So that means we might want to intervene and see if there are users that are, not using the tools the most effective way. Maybe they're always sending copies of files rather than sharing a link to something that's stored in Google Drive. That's a really good example of a place where maybe we want to try to change a specific behavior. A third might be transition. So many of you might be coming from a different tool like legacy Microsoft apps, and you're transitioning to be in Google Workspace. And so that's a scenario where now the entire organization needs to be taught about what's there. And then the last one is the fact that even if you've already used these tools and you've had them in place for years, most users only use a fraction of what's possible inside of their technology tools. And so we might want to identify key resources and features that can optimize the behaviors that the users actually have within the organization. Now, that's really what we're trying to do. So really, to put it simple, so we want to make it easier, we want to make it better, and we want to make it less expensive to be able to get the results with your technology. So the real key here is that if you think about the historic approach, and I love looking again at the survey results that you sent in, right? So most of you don't have a plan, and those of you who do have a person who's assigned to tackle that. Well, the kind of the legacy approach to adoption was this analog approach where you have a person that their job is to provide instructor-led training. They're making guides. They're, printing out pieces of paper and leaving them on people's desks, maybe. Perhaps you have a Google site where they're uploading a bunch of content. That's great, but that's very human and manual. Then there's been kind of this shift over the last couple of years where organizations are starting to now look and say, well, what about if we start purchasing third-party tools like, get a LinkedIn Learning or a Udemy or a Coursera? And that's cool. I can see a couple of you have actually, nobody has done that, which is probably smart, because if you think about from an adoption perspective, just purchasing a bunch of content doesn't really do anything. It's not about like this field of dreams. If I build it, will they come? Ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out, how do I find the things that I want my organization to do and then be targeted in my approach there. So what BrainStorm is trying to do is we're trying to jump to this new innovation curve where it's not just about publishing resources and providing human-led, non-scalable training, but what if we could make this more autonomous and make it so that we can scale the reach of IT so that they can provide the resources that users need at the right time and in the right way. So that's a really big challenge. And ultimately, the way that we need to do this is, what if we could just drive it in 3 simple steps? First, we need to figure out what are the behaviors that we want to look for. And then can we trigger a flow, a user experience to that end user that gives them the right training at the right time in the right way, and then surface back the results to IT and to leadership to be able to say, users are happy, users are feeling successful, so we get some sentiment and qualitative data. But then what if we could take that a step further and then also provide visibility into the actual change in their behavior? So if we can do all of that, now we're really sitting in a really magical spot. So I'm going to show you how we do that really quick. Let me just switch over here from this slide deck. And I'm going to switch over into, this is just a fake Gmail account. And I want to, before I jump in and start talking about what BrainStorm does, I want to talk about a problem that I think so many organizations struggle with on a regular basis. So if you notice here on my screen, I've got my setup. It looks great, nice. I can go in, I can see a nice message, I can click in and out. It feels really comfortable, and I feel, this is how I've always worked. So I feel pretty good about that. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that when you're working inside of Gmail, there's a couple of ways that you can optimize this experience. And a lot of users leave this off on the site. So as an example, did you know you can go into what's known as a split pane mode? And when you do this, if you're a long-term Outlook user, as an example, and you're being asked to transition over to Gmail, you might feel really frustrated in the sense that it doesn't look and feel the same way. Well, no problem. You can actually switch over and have my reading pane like this, or sorry, have my reading pane right here in the middle. And then I have my message list on the side. That's a really small change, but it's a button that most users don't even know exists to be able to change the way their Outlook is organized. The other piece of this, and my wife is a teacher, and she's used Gmail as part of her work and education for years. And only recently did she discover that there's this little tiny icon, and it's really small down here in the corner. Like, you may not even be able to really see it, but there you go, I'll highlight it so it's easy. This is called the side panel, and it's usually collapsed, and a lot of users don't even realize that it's there. But as an example, one of my favorite items is the fact that I can surface my calendar within my Gmail without ever having to leave. So I can see when my next meetings are, I can plan my day, I can even pull up a task list from this side pane and be able to update things that I need to get done before my next meetings. And it's such an easy and simple way to be able to optimize your work. So that's an example of just a simple idea that we sometimes take for granted. Let me give you another really quick example for Sheets. So a lot of times users switch over to Google Workspace and they feel like Sheets is this tool that's not as powerful as Excel. It can't do all the things that Excel can do. Well, let me show you a couple of really powerful features that a lot of users just don't know are there. So I work in this case for a make-believe shoe company called Soul Shoe. And this is some survey data that they got back from their end users. And so maybe what they wanted to do is they wanted to go and find all of the users who said, yes, they'd recommend this product after purchasing it. So I've got this big long list of data and I've got a bunch of yeses and nos. Well, how do I actually do that? Well, you might know that if you're a long-term Excel user, you could add filters, you could format it as a table, you could add slicers. Notice here, I've done just that. This is a slicer inside of Google, and all I have to do is say, I only want to see the people who said yes, and it automatically filters my results down to show me the yes responses rather than the no and yes responses. Well, how do you do that? Most users have no idea where to go to insert a filter or a slicer into the tool. Another common advanced feature is a pivot table. Again, this is something that's very, very powerful. That's a feature to be able to take all of that information that we just had, in this case, almost 1,500 rows of data. And then I can see what causes you to retire your shoes. Here are the responses and then the breakdowns of that. That's a summary of this massive table that most people don't know how to understand or interpret. So, well, how do you do that? Well, again, that's one of the things that we want to be able to help users understand is there's all of this power that's available inside of your tools. It's not just about being able to insert data, and it's not just about being able to have multiple people access that spreadsheet at the same time. It's about optimizing that experience to unlock the value of that data. So this is how BrainStorm really tries to think is what are the things that are going to help you as an organization succeed with your goals and with your technology. So the way that we do that is twofold. I mentioned the idea before of I want to know what the user needs to accomplish so I can trigger a flow for that specific user. And then based off of that user's flow, I want to take that further and then say, okay, well, now that I understand exactly what we need to do, let's go ahead and figure out what the results of that impact were. So there's two sides to actually make that accomplished. One is the idea of having a place you can send users so they can be successful. But the other side of this is being able to administer that experience proactively to your users. So I'm going to go ahead in another tab here and open up my back-end side of this experience. And notice it may not be just for Google. Maybe you do have other tools that you care about like Slack or Box or Zoom. We can support all of your different scenarios for what you're trying to actually accomplish. So when you're thinking about your scenario, the first thing we want to do is we want to think, how do I target the right users? How do I trigger that experience? So one of the things we want to do is we want to target a user group. Let's say that we're launching out Google to a set of users. You could create a group and add in every single user in the organization that you want to be able to target. So that's the first thing. How do I group my users? Maybe I want to do that by department. Well, we can actually integrate with your Google system data. So we can find anytime you have like department or job title, we can add those users dynamically and enroll people automatically into a group. So that's really helpful too, because one of the things we might want to do is we want to have the system work on our behalf. So in this case, Diego is a new sales hire. I want to be able to target him with specific content. So now I have my flow that I'm going to give out to my new sales hire. Let's go ahead and say, you need to manage your calendar effectively. We're going to make this so that it's important and as a priority. And then anytime he or any other new user is added into the system in the sales department, they'll be promoted this flow. And we'll show you how that actually works here in a second. So there we go. Got my flow assigned to the sales department. Really, really easy. Now, the second part of this that's really important to think about is how do I communicate with my users? So we can go in there and actually create messages and resources that we can use to target users with key information. So as an example, I just talked about pivot tables. We want to tell users how to do that. You can take any template that's pre-created in here. You can copy them and then edit them. And it will actually send out a message. In this case, notice it's showing me how to insert a pivot table in an animated GIF. It links to a video that shows the user how to do that. And you can send out these messages to your end users to get information on, who actually read the message and did they click it and did they watch the video? And you get all of that information to know, did your campaign to drive the adoption of a key feature actually work? So that's a really, really powerful part of this whole process. Now, the other side of this is I might want to go in and add videos. Well, we've got tons of videos and resources that are uploaded into the system to teach users about different capabilities. And you can also add your own. And so that's really powerful too. And then you take those different resources, and that's how you build out these flows. So notice here on this homepage, I have been targeted with some specific courses. This is what an end user would see now, by the way. So sorry if that was jarring. Switched over from the back end to what an end user would see. And I can take those different resources and promote those to users. So the system is sending notifications on my behalf that come from me. And they're sending the users to key courses that might help them to understand how to utilize their tools better. So really, really, really powerful and cool to think about is the fact that every user gets their own customized experience. So maybe I was doing docs, maybe this user, I want to go in and push them to go learn about Google Meet. It's also a portal where users can get self-service because you are setting this up as your portfolio or your tool. Notice here the SoulShoe Inc. demo account. Let's say I wanted to go learn about slicers. So I'm going to go and search for slicers. I find a video that shows me about slicers, and then there's my video. Go ahead and click in, and I got a video I can show to users that teaches them how to go and create their own slicers inside of a spreadsheet inside of Google Sheets. Right? Really, really simple, really, really easy. And I didn't have to go become the expert. The system is providing those resources to me for my end users so that they can better utilize the tools that I'm providing to them. So I love this capability. It's just a really simple and easy way for you to drive success inside the organization. Now, I'm going to go back to your side as an IT person, right? So one of the things that is so exciting and powerful to think about is that you can take these experiences that we're giving to users and we can automate them more and more and more. So on the back end, if you are an IT admin, we can integrate with your Google data and we can say, I want to show, again, talk about a remediation scenario. I want to find any user that has been downloading a bunch of files, and I'm going to email them to say, hey, you've got to be careful when you're downloading files. What's the best practice of how you should handle files? Notice I sent them a survey, and then how they respond to that survey, I might either end a course or I might recommend some video content that teaches them how to better manage their files and their sharing of files within an organization. So this is really powerful because you're not just putting out a portal where I put content like you see here, but I'm actually empowering IT with the resources that they need to automate it in an automated fashion, help onboard new hires or remediate bad behaviors like you see in this example, or to transition my organization from an old tool, or finally to be able to optimize their behaviors. So these are all tools that you can use at your disposal to be successful trying to drive an outcome or to drive a change within the organization. Now, the last thing that I want to be able to highlight is the fact that if you're coming from Microsoft to Google, we actually can integrate with your usage information and show you, is your Microsoft usage going down? Is your Google usage going up? And you'll get great visibility into how that's actually going. And then we can take content information like, as an example, I've got all of these different flows that I've been putting together. Let's look at what videos users are watching. So you can see I watched that video. And so now you know which user went in. I'm logged in as a guy named Musa, I believe. So that should show that Musa started watching that video. And I get all that information. If users answer surveys inside the portal, then I get survey data and I know exactly how they're responding. So all of these resources empower me to make the case to leadership that we are getting more value out of our technology within the organization. That ultimately is what we want to do. We want to empower you to be more and more successful at driving the outcomes that you want. So I'm gonna pause there, and Jacqueline, you've been quiet over here on the side. We're going to turn some time over to you here in a second, but I'd love to get your reaction looking at some of these capabilities. I know even for you, it's like this idea of working with BrainStorm is kind of new. So what are some of the things that stick out to you after we've had this conversation about how we unlock the value of technology?
I think it's very important to learn how to use new tools and how you lay that out for customers moving from Microsoft to Google. We see that all the time. It's how do you get a team to adopt a new technology? And so the way that flow works, I think it's very useful. I think that many customers would find value in that. And I love how you walk through that. It's exciting to know that there are tools like this out there, because again, no one wants to be that one go-to person to walk through all of these different softwares and how to manage them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of times people don't realize, even when it comes to Workspace. If you move from Microsoft to Workspace, your impression or your thinking might be that Workspace is really just like, well, it's Gmail and it's Docs and Drive and that's it. But what a lot of people don't realize is how much additional power there is. So just as an example, maybe there's Gmail and Calendar and Chat, which we're familiar with, but what about, let's look for forms. That's a thing that a lot of people don't take advantage of. Or Google Keep, which is basically a replacement of OneNote in case I used OneNote in my Google world, or my Microsoft world, excuse me. What about Google Sites? That's my replacement for my SharePoint sites. So we can go in here and filter down to find specific courses to help a user learn how to build out their own site. And again, I know this looks complicated, but that's the whole idea, is we're taking all these resources and then we're trying to create an automated way to deliver the right resources to the right user at the right time. Yeah, awesome comment there, Jacqueline. Anything else you wanted to add to that?
I love that you can send them to their email. So when you were saying that it gets automated to their usage, you can target teams or individuals that maybe aren't using Calendar properly or are saving those files, and they should just be, they're downloading those files when they should be sharing them. Every little bit helps, right? And being able to have them automated to their email and get the statistics behind them, I think that's important.
It's such a good point. I think one of the things that is a challenge is knowing when is the right time to send a message to a user. So being able to target them with the right message at the right time matters. But let me take that a step further, actually. So one of the things you notice here is it says 11 site tips and tricks with 2-week delays. So one of the things that we've discovered over time is that a lot of time there's a heavy focus on adoption when I'm rolling out new technology. But what about when I've already rolled out the technology and I just want to make sure that I'm reminding users of key features and capabilities? Well, this is an awesome one as an example, because I can come in here and the whole thing is just emails. So not only can I send them an email at the right time, in this case, this is just scheduled to send out a message to a user every 2 weeks about the different capabilities. Like, what's a favicon? Do you even know what a favicon is? I can go in and change the little icon that appears in the tab of my site. How do I do that? So there's all these really neat little tips that I could help someone who's responsible for building out a Google site. Every couple of weeks, I'm going to just drip out a little tip. And that's this idea of when it comes to adoption, it's not just about, did I teach the user how to do something? It's also, did I drive awareness and build desire for them to do that thing? And then am I reinforcing that on a regular basis? And this is one of those examples where you could kind of set it and forget it, and the system is just reaching out on your behalf to your end users. But again, you're getting all the data that shows that it was impactful and that it helped the user change their behavior. And that's all built in really, really simply and easily for the user to be successful. So, okay, so I'm gonna switch back over because I think this is probably a good segue into. I'd love your thoughts here, Jacqueline, as we talk a little bit more about. Let's go here back into the slides, and I'd love your thoughts. Let's take a look at some of your thoughts on why is Promevo starting to work with BrainStorm specifically.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. I appreciate you diving into all of that. I know that it's very valuable, and that's exactly why we forge partnerships with companies like BrainStorm. Is because our primary goal is to provide value to our customers, and by joining forces with innovative companies, we can offer our customers the best tools and solutions, ensuring they're equipped for success. And from a strategic perspective, we see BrainStorm as an ideal technology-first solution to helping users engage with and get the most out of their Google Workspace, where Promevo can provide expertise, licensing, and support on your journey from Chrome to cloud. This solution adds an additional layer of continuous engagement. Go to the next slide. Change can be difficult for many to accept, and you've learned that, right? So think of the last time you tried to implement a new software or experienced pushback or limited usage from your teams. We can help you streamline those operations, saving valuable time and resources through the optimization of tools like Google Docs, Sheets, BigQuery, or many others. And when you harness BrainStorm, you can facilitate that learning and help your team grow and understanding and utilization of these tools. Ultimately, for Promevo, we're not in the business of selling software, but because anyone can do that, but we're interested in digital transformation and putting the right tools in the hands of the right people so they can be more effective in their jobs. That's great. I mean, we want to do that every day. The more effective utilization of tools throughout an organization, the more you'll see measurable positive outcomes and productivity and increase in revenue. Your tech ecosystem should function like your company and like a unified whole. And Promevo partnerships enable us to facilitate the harmonious interactions of various tools, creating that cohesive strategy for your company. And rest assured, dedicated team members like myself will be there to help you navigate this process with ease. Our mission is clear. It's to provide you with the tools, knowledge, and expertise that you require to excel in the digital age. And when you partner with Promevo and BrainStorm, you're not just gaining access to products, you're becoming part of a community, and that community is dedicated to your ongoing success. And the Promevo team is your trusted companion along the way.
All right, great. Thank you guys so much. That was so knowledgeable and interesting. I appreciate both your takes. I'm interested to get into the Q&A. We have a couple questions going on. But before we move forward, we hope you all would check out our websites for more information. On the right-hand side, you'll see some upcoming webinars in October that I mentioned previously. We will also be sending out a follow-up email containing today's recording, the slide deck, and all the links to register for the upcoming webinars. So let's ask Jackie and Todd some questions.
I'm all about questions. That's like my favorite.
Right.
Let's do it.
So we have a couple here. One was, how is this different than Google provided materials?
Okay, I love this. In fact, so I didn't mention this at the start, but I almost started my career out of college here at BrainStorm. Like I graduated school in 2011. Is when I graduated from college. Yeah. So I worked for a couple of years for startups, and then I came to BrainStorm. So I've been here at BrainStorm for now over a decade. And one of the things that I've learned is that the free resources online, they're good. Having resources available is good, but the problem is the only time a user goes to search out resources is when they know they have a problem. And most users, about 85% or so, have no idea that they have a problem. They just accept that the way that they work is the way that they work, and the tools that they have are the tools that they have. And then to go back to that point that Jacqueline made earlier is just the fact that there's all these other tools like Jamboard and Keep and Currents that none of them are potentially taking advantage of. And we're paying for that as an organization. So sending a user to a free resource is limited, causes a couple of problems. One is we're relying on them to be motivated to go search them out. And the second thing is that those free resources, they don't give us any visibility in whether or not a user actually did anything with them. So if you send a user to a help article on Google's page, which by the way, Google makes great stuff, do you know if they went and looked at it? Do you know if they read it? Do you know if it helped them? Maybe if they came back and told you, but if you're trying to support hundreds of, if not thousands of users, that's a really big task to ask a single person who's responsible for adoption to manage. And it's really discouraging to not feel like your actions are making an impact. So really it comes down to, can I automate the delivery of the right resources at the right time? And can I get visibility into their effectiveness? That is the real thing that we're trying to do differently than just the free resources can provide.
Okay,
And
great.
I'll just add that the customization with that and the outgoing reminders to the team, that helps with that, right? Like looking at it one time, maybe reading the article versus continuously getting notified of new tools and features. And then you're, as a team lead, you can see where your team is adopting change and where you need to work on. So I'll just add that.
Yeah, great
Nice.
call.
Well, speaking of customizing, are these all customized trainings? Like what if an office has some unique policies?
Okay, so that's actually a really good question. So I'll switch back over to my screen here. So two things are a big deal here when we're thinking about what we're trying to achieve. One is when it comes down to this experience, yes, there's pre-built stuff for you. Because again, the whole idea is we're trying to make it really, really easy. But you may notice some of these are in draft and some of them are published. Any experience that we provide to you in the portal from either BrainStorm or from another vendor, because we actually work with other vendors too, they might provide content for you. You can choose if that content is published. You can also duplicate that content and you can change it. So that's a really, really key idea. So when it comes to the flows and setting up this automation, you are in full control. It is your system and you can customize it however you want. But I'll take that a step further. So not only does it come preloaded with content, so notice all of these resources that are here that I can leverage, but you could add in your own content as well. It's literally just a drag and drop, and it'll start adding in your own content too. So that's another really good key thing to think about. It's not just about, can I make changes to the content that's been provided? Yes, you can, but you can also add your own content and then augment the experience with any resources that you want to add and create yourself, your own communications, your own surveys, your own flows that you build from scratch. So that's a very long-winded way to answer that question. But yeah, of course, customize away.
Great. No, I love all the details. It's great. Jackie, does Promevo manage this for users?
And we want to empower the user to manage this on their own. So we'll make sure that you have the tools needed, the training needed to access the account, and you'll manage this for your team. I think that really empowers you as the manager of the account so that you can make sure that your team is following through. And then anytime there are any questions or if there's something that you're not sure of how to do, I'm always here. Our teams are here, the account managers, BrainStorm's here. So we'll make sure that you're taught and you learn how to manage the account, and that way you can take it from there.
So even when they're controlling the platform, they still have the support from Promevo and BrainStorm
100%.
Throughout everything. That's
yes,
great.
Of course. You can always email your account manager anytime you have questions about those things. We also have our dedicated support team here for you. So if you ever need anything, we're an email or a call away.
That's great. How do they get started?
If you're interested in working with us on BrainStorm, you just give your account manager a call. You can respond in here. You can shoot them an email. You can call us directly. When you're interested, they'll take it from there. They'll try to figure out what it is you want to use it for, what you're doing now, any pain points that you have, and then we'll get your account set up and make sure that you're enabled to achieve those goals that you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, great. Well, that's all the questions we have. I really appreciate you guys being here and taking the time to let everyone know about BrainStorm and our partnership between Promevo and BrainStorm. Thank you guys for joining us. We hope you have a great day.